Hey everyone, welcome. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer. Today, we're taking a super fascinating, kind of conceptual deep dive into a profoundly powerful vision laid out for the next generation. We're looking at a core text that functions almost like a manifesto for school students. It's called Tomorrow's Architects, Future Business Horizons for Students, and it has this critical sub-focus on future business trends. Now, it's a pretty brief text, right? But honestly, it introduces a surprisingly powerful mindset shift. We're going to unpack exactly what it means for a student today to stop looking at the economy as just, something they'll eventually participate in and actually start looking at it as something they're going to actively design.
Who will build the future of business? It's really not a rhetorical question. Historically, we've kind of treated students as passive receivers of information, right? Just people waiting in the wings to be handed the keys to industries that already exist. But the source material we're unpacking today, it flips that entirely on its head. It literally demands that we ask not who will simply work in the future of business, but who's going to build it from the ground up.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First up, tomorrow's architects. Second, we'll be mapping future horizons. Third, exploring business trends. And finally, we'll look at the student's blueprint. All right, jumping right into section 1, tomorrow's architects, and this whole idea of an active student identity. Think about the specific word used here. It doesn't call students tomorrow's employees. It doesn't call them tomorrow's managers. It calls them tomorrow's architects. And an architect is a visionary. They don't just, walk into a building. They imagine the entire thing before the foundation is even poured. They aren't just looking for a job at a tech firm. They're designing the next huge leap in artificial intelligence or mapping out a brand new clean energy supply chain. By using this very specific terminology, it establishes that students are the master builders of the future. They're the ones who will design the very structures and foundations of business landscapes that we literally haven't even conceived of yet. It's just a tremendous shift from a passive learning mindset to an incredibly active, creative one. And this brilliantly illustrates the inherent tension in the phrase, tomorrow's architects. Because, well, while the buildings, the businesses, the industries, the innovations all belong to tomorrow, the blueprinting, the studying, and the groundwork absolutely must happen today. You just cannot build a stable structure tomorrow if you haven't engineered a solid foundation today. And this really empowers students right now, in this very moment, telling them that their current education isn't just some waiting room. It's actually the drafting table for their future empires. Moving on to section 2, mapping future horizons, vast external landscapes. So there's a really distinct separation between today's reality and tomorrow's horizons. The source purposefully uses the word horizons. And a horizon isn't a wall. It's not a fixed boundary. A horizon is a line that constantly moves forward as you move toward it. It represents the absolute limit of our current vision, for sure, but also the promise that there is always, always more beyond it. For a student, today's reality is their current textbook or the current economic climate. But tomorrow's horizons? Those represent limitless, continuously expanding potential. So what does it actually mean to map a horizon? Well, it requires 3 things from our student architects. First, expanding the view beyond current limits. So not getting bogged down by how business is done today. Second, discovering uncharted business territory. The industries these students are going to dominate might not even have names yet, which honestly is definitely going to make explaining their major to their parents at Thanksgiving pretty interesting. And third, focusing entirely on future possibilities. It requires a mindset that is perpetually looking forward, anticipating what the world will need next, rather than just reacting to what the world needs right now. All right, section 3, exploring business trends, the dynamic elements. If horizons are the destination, you can think of trends as the weather and the terrain along the way. So how does an architect actually interact with business trends? They use this 3-step process. First, they observe the landscape, what's happening in the world. Second, they analyze the shifts. Why is it happening and where's it leading? And third, they adapt for the future. So they don't just observe that AI is popular, right? They analyze why it shifts labor, and they adapt by building a business that actually leverages it. An architect doesn't fight the terrain, they design with it. For school students, understanding future business trends isn't about memorizing trivia. It's about learning how to read the vital signs of the global economy so they can build something completely resilient. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the difference between a fad and a trend. Trends are the currents shaping the future. Fads, on the other hand, are just ripples on the surface of the water. They disappear as quickly as they arrive. But currents move oceans. They shape coastlines. Future business horizons are explicitly paired with business trends because recognizing these deep underlying currents is absolutely essential for any architect finalizing their blueprint. If you don't understand the currents, your business is going to be swept away. But if you harness them, they will carry you straight to that horizon. And that brings us to section 4, the student's blueprint actionable mindset. So the crucial point is, when you put the entire source text back together, it reads as a standalone, super empowering manifesto. Tomorrow's architects, future business horizons for students. It's a literal call to action. It tells the student, you are the designer. The landscape is vast and limitless, and the tools you need are an understanding of the currents shaping our world. It completely elevates the student from a mere participant to a true creator. To distill this entire explainer down to its core takeaways, derived strictly from our source material, of course, we have 3 main pillars. Number 1, adopt an architect's mindset. You have to take ownership of the design of your future. Number 2, look toward future horizons. Never let your vision be boxed in by the way things are done today. And number 3, prepare for emerging business trends. Learn to read the currents of the economy so you can build structures that actually last. We've unpacked the identity, we've mapped the landscape, and we've analyzed the currents. But ultimately, an architect is defined by what they actually create. The groundwork, as we discussed, starts today. The horizon is out there, and the trends are already in motion. The only question left to ask yourself, or really the students in your life, is simply this. The horizon is waiting. What will you build? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you inspired to start drafting your own blueprints today.